Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, Sigvar here and welcome back to another video. So I'm here to talk a bit about the Twin Blade, which is most likely going to be the artifact we're going to get for free from the John Constantine Soul Raid. This has been data mined, which means it's already in the data of the game but not available to the public. And they said that this is going to be the free artifact. A huge shout out to Herod for data mining this, and the thing is, they could be wrong. He could be wrong because there's been a misunderstanding in the past with the free artifact. However, most times they get right, so it's most likely the free artifact. Also, disclaimer, I don't know anything about this artifact for sure until I get my hands on it, and that's the same thing applies to you as well watching. So all we can both do is educated guesses. It doesn't mean my opinion or yours is invalid, even though they might be different. We can only say who's right and who's wrong whenever we get the hands-on artifact. So let's see what the artifact does. It's gonna give you all the way up to 80% chance to armor pierce with basic hits and swipe attacks. And it's going to give you 300% damage for armor pierced swipes and specials. The thing with armor pierce is not the most useful thing in the world, and you don't see that often enemies that have armor, and a lot of the enemies that have armor are going to be immune to armor pierce, funny enough, and in that case I'm very curious to see if this even works in that scenario. But you should think about that armor pierce that it gives you more like a requirement for it to work than a benefit. So it's not the worst thing of a requirement because you can get armor pierce on basic hits on talents as well, so you can artificially inflate your armor pierce chance. And even when you have this at level 10, you're still gonna put some on the talents to get that 100% chance, so this is going to be not hard to achieve. But that's gonna be more of a requirement for the 300% damage at level 10 for armor pierced basics and swipe attacks. Now, we're going to skip over this and talk a bit about the other things and then go back to this. So, additional damage from armor pierce basic hits attack splits between the target and the tagged out opponents. I don't really care about this. This is something more specific to Arena Champions Arena. It could be real good over there, but might not be. I mean, it's most likely gonna be real good there, but I don't really care personally. Generally speaking, the damage split to tagged out opponents is gonna be good because they are unable to use their defense against it. Like, think of Raiden 3rd special. So this artifact could be awesome in Arena Champions Arena, but I'm here to talk about the performance in raids and soul raids. Also, armor pierce hits destroy all active shields and barriers. This is just hitting the enemy to destroy a shield or a barrier is most likely the most reliable way of destroying a shield that we've had so far, so that's amazing. The problem, or not necessarily the problem, but the lack of need of this is that we barely have any characters that have shields that are annoying and that are hard to deal with. Okay, so this is the artifact. Now I'm going to go back to the 300% damage on armor pierced hits and talk about that a bit more in depth. So, first of all, what does that mean? It means a cyborg passive that works on everyone, but worse. Why worse? Because if, for example, you had Cyborg as a supporting character, you could combine it on a damage tier within our artifact, like put Dark Metal cards on the damage tier, put Crown, but since it's an artifact, it has to compete rather than help with those artifacts. Now, how good is 300% on basic hits? First of all, I'm not 100% sure. I'm not 100% sure about this, but if it's just damage, just raw damage, how raw damage is calculated in just Immobile is going to be just as good as the Thanos passive. But worse than the Thanos passive because the Thanos passive will provide that 300% damage for also your specials, not only your hits. So that's something to keep in mind. And the Thanos passive, well, it's a nice addition and can definitely be good for some things. It's not the most amazing thing in the world. And since this is yet again an artifact and not a character, it has to compete with some serious stuff like a 500% damage on both hits and specials from Crown, additional crit damage from Dark Metal cards, and it really seems to fall flat yet again unless damage on basic hits, additional damage on basic hits, bonus damage on basic hits is calculated a bit differently. Again, this is something we'll only be able to see once we get hands on the artifacts. Until that point, I have no idea, but if it's simply damage, then it's gonna be bad. if it's calculated a bit differently. And to be fair with the Justice team, the damage that Cyborg gives is more than you could get on a random character from getting 300% damage on their basic hits. So it could be a bit different. Now, even if that is different indeed, and it's going to give you a lot more damage than it seems like it's going to give you, that's still gonna leave a few problems, because not a lot of teams are going to benefit from that, or maybe some of them will benefit. But for the sake of the argument, let's think about some things. First of all, let's talk about the most used and powerful characters. Patum Underground? Nope, she does not care one bit about damage on basic hits. She's all about activating that passive and making sure that passive does as much damage as possible. So I don't think damage on basic hits is going to be in any way relevant for her, regardless of how good this artifact is or is not. League of Anarchy, this is going to be a bit of a weird one, because this is damage on basic hits, right? The League of Anarchy damage does depend on damage on your basic hits. The more you do your basics, the more the dot damage is going to be. However, other modifiers in the game, like the Crown or the Dark Metal cards, are going to also affect the dot damage. So it's gonna get increased because the normal damage is buffed, and then it's gonna get increased the second time by the same artifacts. So in that regard, it's gonna be very hard on League of Anarchy to compete with Crown and Dark Metal cards. And if this is on League of Anarchy, better with Burning Crown and Dark Metal cards, even though it's not double stacking for them, then it's gonna be absolutely insane on all the characters in the game. So it's either gonna be the most broken artifact in the game, or most likely not good for League of Anarchy. With King, it's a bit rough, because this kind of needs to compete with, for the pay-to-win side of things, with Beta Club, which is not gonna happen. That's just not gonna happen. And for the free-to-play side of things, with 1.4 billion damage against the 2 billion health targets when you're using North Snow Globe. So that's, yet again, a bit of a rough thing to compete with. Bad Ninja Team is currently bugged, and will most likely be bugged upon the release of this Soul Rate and this artifacts. So I have no idea if they're gonna get fixed, though I would really like to try this artifact on them to see how it works with their lethal attack damage. And it could have a decent synergy with Manta, but I'm not too excited about it. And with Mr. Freeze, I've seen some Mr. Freeze doing basic hit damage with Joker as Batarings, and that's fun to watch, that's fun to do. But you need a 7-star Mr. Freeze, because the freeze is gonna break, and even at that point you're still most likely gonna be better off using a Puppet on him or a Beta Club. So those are kind of my thoughts on this. It really all falls down to what that 300% damage means. If it means 300% damage in the same way that Zatanna gives that 300% damage, it's gonna be an absolute garbage artifact. Most likely one of the worst artifacts, might see some occasionally use because of that break shield passive that it has, if we get in the future bosses that have annoying shields to deal with. If it's working in the way that Cyborg does, it's not necessarily gonna be the best artifact in the game, because as I have explained, most of the top teams don't really need that, but it's definitely gonna be a very fun artifact to use and experiment with. Yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on this artifact. If anybody was wondering, it's most likely gonna be the free one, though yet again no 100% guarantees. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye!